is located in Blanche, North Carolina. This historic Caswell County farm is home to Blue Bloods Thoroughbred Adoption and Placement, a nonprofit 501c3.
It was established in 1770, and it was built by George Williamson, who was a Scottish immigrant. And he came to this country and established a tobacco plantation here. George Williamson's brother, when he built the back house in 1770, his brother was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. So the back house probably heard all kinds of interesting political discussions at that period of time. The chronological history of Melrose was that it started in 1770, actually probably even earlier than that, probably from the 1750s. It was built in three portions, the house was. First, there was a cabin with a one-room cabin with a small sleeping quarters upstairs, and then the federal house was built around that. And then in 1820, the Greek Revival House was built in front of the federal house. From 1820 to the Depression, it was an active tobacco plantation. And after the Depression, when the South was hit really hard, the house was vacated. In 1940, Mrs. Williamson, who was also a descendant of the Brown and Williamson Tobacco Company heirs, bought Melrose and restored it. And she used it, she was from Durham, she used it as a weekend house for the next 15 years. And then after that, it went through a succession of family members and was sold in the 70s to someone that had sheep and a wool business here. And we bought it in the mid-1990s and proceeded to bring it back. It was used as a weekend house by the previous owners and was really allowed to fall into disrepair. We set about reclaiming the land. The house was in pretty good shape, but we reclaimed the land, and that meant timbering pastures that had been allowed to grow up in scrub. So we did that along with some pine to make it worthwhile. And we regraded everything, fenced it, put in waterers, and then we started to collect a horse or two. I'd had race horses as a child because I had an uncle that had them, and he would just recycle them to me. So I had them growing up and always loved them, loved their personalities and their work ethic, and just thought they were great horses, and everyone had them then. And then when warm blood started coming in, nobody had them. That's when a lot of the race horses fell out of favor, the thoroughbreds, and started going to slaughter. You know, to me, that's just unacceptable. My husband and I moved back from New York City, where we were both art directors. And I decided I wanted horses. The first thing I thought about was a thoroughbred. My first horse I adopted from Rerun, and he was the second horse to come from the New Jersey chapter of Rerun. And I still have him here. Several years later, I adopted another horse, and I'd stayed in touch with the director for Rerun, Laurie Lane, and she called me up one day and asked me if I would take a horse or two and see if I could place them, because they were having trouble placing these thoroughbreds in New Jersey. After that, it just sort of snowballed, and they backed up an 18-wheeler and dropped off 8 at 3 in the morning. And so in 2013, we put together a group, filed the paperwork, and started Blue Bloods. And we're now a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And so far, this year, since 2013, we've adopted out over 10 of them, and which is pretty good considering we've just gotten up and running. The mission is to rehome these beautiful horses and have them not go to slaughter or be in some way compromised, and to have the best homes and adopters they can possibly have. So what we do is we'll evaluate, rehabilitate, and retrain these off-the-track thoroughbreds using Averett University students and their program. We've just had a donation to put in a ring and are teaching courses here on retraining the off-the-track thoroughbred, which so far has been a great success. Most of them have been adopted, and it's given them a new lease on life, basically. They get new skills to use other than racing skills, and they go on to new homes. The goal is to be the best thoroughbred nonprofit in the country. And I don't think that's too lofty a goal. I think that we have to aim for something. Mm-hmm. And we've gotten off to a great start. We've had wonderful horses and great adopters and people that volunteer to help us. It can only get better. It's a lot of hard work, but we're headed in the right direction. I think funding is a very challenging part of running a nonprofit. All of it is, but the funding is the thing that keeps us going. It keeps our horses fed, keeps the vet coming, the farrier coming. All of those things are so important for a nonprofit, and if you don't have funding for it, you can't operate. We just have to have awareness. People need to understand that we're a nonprofit and operate on donations and help, volunteer help. Just keep in mind, funding is the key for running a nonprofit.